Today, we would like to address a very important subject, a subject that we consider being fundamental, but nowadays it is not touched. To have the exact perspective of what we are going to address, we have named this study the institution that did not consolidate. We suppose that a series of questions will be generated. Doubts, maybe strong critics will rise. It is possible that there will be dissension, that many will not agree, but we have to let the subject develop itself, and that with evidence it is demonstrated if it is correct or not. It is important that we can understand the topic, from which a series of chapters, epochs, or eras will become detached, from which we will begin addressing a series of aspects that we consider were not developed in its moment, that were not allowed to be consolidated, and what provoked, in a certain degree, the chaos that nowadays rules in all that can be known as Christianity, between quotation marks, which many people confuse as the ancient faith. But because this is not the debate, not the bottom of the discussion, the core of the subject, we will focus in this theme that we will try to develop the best way possible. We consider it is fundamental, to some extent, to start by putting some base that can allow us to comprehend for sure what we are talking about. That requires that we contextualize the subject to a determined epoch, and based upon that foundation, we can develop the structure that will be able to sustain or hold this topic of the institution that did not consolidate it, which this is its first part. So repeating again, we consider that yes, that a series of questions will be done, of struggles, persons that will be offended. It is possible that susceptibilities will be hurt, that sacred cows will be damaged or destroyed, but it is fundamental and necessary to the well development of the things that we talk of what must be talked, that we address what must be addressed, and that means that there are a series of topics that are taboos in the Holy Scriptures and that have to be treated. So we consider fundamental and necessary to address this subject, the institution that did not consolidate it. And to begin, we will try to come close to the historical moment of the things, and later to develop that historical context in function of what we have today, and by which a profound division has been born, heated debates, strong discussions, and a great babel of religious confusion born from this very problem, from an institution that did not consolidate it. and the ones whose duty was to develop it did not dedicate it to it. That is why we consider fundamental to refer to a historical fact, and in the base of that fact, try to comprehend the discussion that we are trying to have. That is why we need to locate ourselves in the moment in which the institution is born. Those were turbulent and dangerous times in the Far East. The Roman Empire tried to maintain its conquests at all costs in the different occupied territories. Times of much controversy, necessity, and search of the belief in the land of Israel. Moments of much political and religious agitation, of great spiritual abandonment, and rising religious abuse to the more dispossessed and oppressed classes. With a corrupted and extremely greedy religion that for many years had abandoned the true God and had corrupted his laws. In this context, we can understand that we were in an inflexible point, in an intense point of history. Why? Because, as we have tried to relate in a very terse way, the underlying problems that were generated in the different territories, in the different countries, the only thing that they were producing were more troubles. And that is why we are trying to set things clear, in order to be able to put in a context what was happening, to locate ourselves. And why is this important? And also it could be asked, why is this necessary? Because if you do not situate in the moment in which a series of events are taking place, you are not going to be able to comprehend with real basis the facts that happened and the results that took place. That is why we say that those were turbulent times in the Far East. Why? Because our perspective is not born in a place close to the East, but from a distant place. Because to us, the richness of the scriptures arrived later, that many call incorrectly the Bible, but are the Holy Scriptures. And this arrival allows us to enter what we are trying to discuss. That is why we believe it is necessary and fundamental to be clear in the political and religious conflict that was generating, that normally is synonym of the absence or the spiritual abandonment, that always comes hand to hand with the religious excesses and abuses. As more religions appear, a contrary and inverse effect takes place. It means that there is little spirituality, and that is why it is necessary to have this elemental concept. So we are clear in that. That is why those were times where after 400 years of divine silence, the redemption in person appears the one who everyone craved for, appears Jesus the Messiah, sent by God Himself. His introduction to this world meant strong and powerful movements from part of Satan, the enemy of God, who tried by all means to destroy the work of God, personified in Jesus, the Messiah. It is important that we have cleared this. It is fundamental, because when the Messiah appeared, a series of messages are given and the true will of God is known. That until that moment it was through a monopoly of the Jews, handled by priests and other characters. But when the personification of the very same redemption in Jesus the Messiah appeared, is in that moment that we can understand, comprehend, and above else, see which is the will of God. That back then was confused, because 400 years almost passed in which God, in general terms, had not manifested or revealed which was His will. That is why this is important, fundamental, because we need to see the historical background of things, so that we can later make a jump and be able to comprehend the actual context of the situation that we are living. That is why it is necessary that we understand each other, and that we comprehend that every event that was registered had a meaning, had a purpose. So the idea at the end is that we can understand why there is an institution and why this institution has a series of deficiencies, who provoke these deficiencies, and where they are leading to. But not because the person who is talking said so, or because a pastor says it, or a preacher, a secular, a Jewish, or a priest, a Presbyterian. No. The only thing that matters here, what interests us, is the will of God. So we need to know, we need to investigate, to corroborate which is this will. So for this is this study. So in this first part we have tried to make a little historical balance, which we hope was understood. You can write to us to the last church 7 in numbers @gmail.com, or you can visit our webpage church-of-god.tk, and we will gladly read upon your doubts or questions or comments.